Welcome to Straight Shot Politics. Each episode will bring you in-depth discussion with experts, community leaders, and analysts who will share their insights, experiences, and predictions. From local elections to global diplomacy, we'll provide you with the tools and perspectives you'll need to navigate today's real-world landscape.
Welcome to Straight Shot Politics. I'm Lisa Chafee.
I'm Josh Cease.
And I'm Michael Nash.
And it's time for this week's Hot Shots, where we take a look at what's hot, what's happening in the news, current events, and all things political. And obviously, we need to start with the primary election results this past Tuesday night. And, my quick take analysis on this, Lisa, is that it was stock from the top. In terms of, there were no, at least on a statewide level, there really wasn't any huge surprises. Although, we saw Jay Edwards defeat Christina Rogner and that battle for treasurer. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that we talked about that J.D. Vance commercial he made because he got that endorsement. That clearly, I think, was what thing pushed him over. But on the state level at the top, it was pretty stock. But there's some good people that lost their primary over the weekend. And it seems like for whatever reason, we're going back up to Delaware County to talk about a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, unfortunately, Senator Brunner and State Rep Beth Lear both lost. Yeah, I truly believe, God has another plan for them. Mm-hmm. I think they're not going to disappear and fade into the night. I pray that come November, Sean Stevens and Ryan Rivers succeed, as well as Brian Lorenz, who's running to keep his seat as state rep. Time will tell. I mean, I have no personal grudges against anybody. I don't know any of them personally.
Right.
Brian has, I don't know what legislation he's worked on, but, Sean and Ryan, need to prove themselves, and hopefully it'll do well. They will do well.
I mean, if you got to root for them, okay?
Yes.
Everybody, this is the idea of what would happen, and I tried to point this out. A lot of people, were complaining on some people's pages, if you know who Jack Windsor, the investigative reporter, is.
Love Jack.
But, and he's been a friend of mine for years now. But I'll tell you, it's this, we got to come together with this nonsense and quit this blaming around, because, and I said this on his post to anybody who's just like, oh, yeah, we're good job. You guys are doing X, Y, and Z. If we don't get our heads collectively right, you're going to be saying Governor Acton, Secretary of State Russo in the fall.
Exactly.
That's going to be disgusting.
The governor who, aside from whatever's come out now about her personal police business and personal issues, if you look what she did in her role during COVID.
I will never forgive her for that. I will never forgive her, ever.
And I was at a town hall Monday night with Vivek, and he even said what bothered him the most about that. And, a lot of what happened during COVID is we were learning as we went, because we never had this, right? Well, right. I mean, there was the, early 1900s Spanish flu business, but in our lifetimes, we've never had anything like this, and so they were trying to figure it out, but she wasn't willing to, dive deeper into, okay, does it affect children different than it does older people? And it was just a blanket, we're shutting down, that's it, wear the mask, blah, 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 and lives were destroyed. Literally, people were dying alone in nursing homes and hospitals. Saw a lot of evil sides of people and businesses coming out. So, no. And not to mention, she's already laid out her plan for wanting to increase our taxes. She's a socialist. So Vivek said it best, that here's our choice for the fall. We want a capitalist, pro-parent, pro-education as far as school choice, or do we want a socialist?
Yes, and if something like abortion matters to you, let me tell you something, Dr. Acton, and I use that term loosely, doctor.
Let's just start calling what it is. Let's just start calling her Socialist Acton.
Socialist Acton,
Like
there
Comrade.
you go.
Comrade
Comrade Acton.
Comrade Acton,
Comrade
yeah.
Pretty much.
That woman loves abortions. She's just like abort.
Well, she is the prime example of white liberal women that are destroying this country.
I totally agree. So yeah, I think congratulations to all the primary winners in the Republican Party. But yeah, it's time to come together. However, there was also some big news that came out of Delaware that happened right before the primary with some shenanigans that were going on up there.
So Sunday night, late in the day Sunday, the Supreme Court issued their decision on whether or not Melanie Lanahan could stay on the ballot and retain her residency status, and the Supreme Court upheld the decision of the Board of Elections. So she is deemed a non-resident, and she is facing potential prosecution for voter fraud.
I mean, that's big.
It's huge.
And listen, all I'm going to say is this. I don't know her on a personal level. She might be the most wonderful mother, wonderful, friend of all time. However, what she did politically for years was the embodiment of entitlement, narcissism, and everything I find just icky and gugh about the system and politics in this country. That's she was that to me. Like the part of this business I loathe. I loathe it.
Yeah. Well, I do know she's very passionate.
I'm sure she is.
And I think personally she's gone too far right, and she, along with many people who have gone too far right, they've established these purity tests. And if you're not conservative enough, if you're not MAGA enough, then you're not enough. And we have to stop that, because going too far right is just as bad as going too far left.
I guess that depends on the various issues of what embodies too far right. I don't even know if it was I'm going to just slightly disagree with you a little bit. I wouldn't phrase it as going too far right. I would more phrase it as, I don't like people, and you hit on it, but I don't like people that apply purity tests to other people.
Yeah.
Like as though we're playing on the same team,
Exactly.
but I'm not pure enough to be in your starting lineup, or whatever. I'm giving a sports analogy here, but that's the way I felt about that. So,
And I'm going to further say I agree with your team analysis, because I think we're all on the same team, so we need to be playing on the same team. So therefore, if you're kind of a team thinks in the 80-20. If you're pretty much 80% of the team, but 20% not, you're like, okay. But as long as you're there for the team needs to be there for you. Right?
Agreed. And so the basic of all this, the gist of it is, look, we all, primaries get ugly, egos get in the way, emotions get in the way, we get passionate about our candidates. The primary's over with now. So as conservatives, as Republicans, we have to decide, are we going to stand by all of our candidates that just won Tuesday night, whether you 100% agree with them or not, or do you want to risk the Democrats taking over
Socialists,
our state?
I told you, if you want to see, if you want to be forced to say Governor Acton and Secretary of State Russo,
Comrade Acton.
Yeah.
Comrade Acton, sorry, Comrade, he's gonna beat it into me. Mike's gonna beat it into me.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you want to be saying that this time, next year, we got to come together. Speaking of good conservatives and conservatives, we're losing a good one. Actually, a great man in Attorney General Dave Yost, who announced his resignation shortly after. I believe it was the day after the primary, was it not?
Yesterday.
Okay. And so I have had the pleasure of meeting A.G. Yost several times, talking to him, interviewing him when I was doing radio here in Columbus. He's a great guy. Hell of a guitar player, by the way. People don't know that. He is a monster
and a
guitar
piano player.
Yep.
Yeah, very gifted musician. And we wish him best on all of his future endeavors. But This is going to be interesting to see what happens about who will get filled to appoint that until January of next year.
Yeah. So first of all, he's taken a position with Alliance Defending Freedom. He is going to he's going to be the vice president of strategic research and innovation. And for those of you who don't know, Alliance Defending Freedom is an Arizona-based Christian legal advocacy group, and they describe itself as, quote, the world's largest legal organization committed to protecting religious freedom, unquote. I think he's going to excel there. I think God has a very special plan for him. Now, what really infuriated me was immediately when it was announced that he was resigning, the conspiracy theories. Oh, he doesn't want to take on the fraud cases. Well, I'm sorry, BS on that. They've already indicted at the state level several people from the Medicare fraud stuff. So, and Dave, I know Dave Yost personally. We've spent time with him in D.C. at the inauguration, just hanging out, talking.
And here as well.
And he is he's a fabulous man. Is he perfect? Of course not.
They've been on our guests on this podcast. So, yeah.
He is not afraid of a fight. He is firmly entrenched in his convictions. And he loves Ohio, and he loves this country, and he loves the law and the Constitution. So I don't know for a fact, but I think this is a situation where the job offer was made, and it was, now or never. So and good for him. And if he had this opportunity, he's going to take it. And I don't blame him, for wanting to. He's still going to be serving the people. He is. He's a servant leader.
Yep, and just in a different manner. And then to kind of round out our final hot shot of the week, on Friday, the Virginia Supreme Court strikes down that referendum that they passed, 52 to 48 or 51-49, something like that. In Virginia, that new redistricting map that would have kind of solidified that in the Constitution of the state of Virginia, and it would have given it, instead of 6 Democrats being in Virginia and 5 Republicans, it would be 10 Democrats in Virginia and 1 Republican.
Yeah.
And the Virginia Supreme Court basically said the way they went about it and how they did it blatantly, they even said in their decision, blatantly violated the state constitution.
Well, so we have a mutual friend, Mark Scher, who is a data guru, I call him. He's a genius. And he made a post a little while ago on Facebook about it. And he states that the actual decision wasn't what we really thought it was, is more about the definition of what an election was. And that the majority opinion was that an election includes all of the early voting period. The dissent is that an election happens on Election Day. So the referendum that the voters voted on and passed required an intervening House election between 2 General Assembly votes to put the redistricting, I can't say that word, amendment on the ballot. It's a really interesting take. He says it has nothing to do with the legitimacy of the map, and in 27 they will try it again. And as long as Democrats are in, but both sides, whoever's in control of the government.
This is like this gerrymandering stuff is out of control. And by the way, it is happening everywhere.
It is.
And the Democrats are freaking out about this because they're saying, well, look what Tennessee just did. Look what Florida has done. Look what Texas has done. And right now, the way it would be shaping up, you're looking at a six-seat Republican pickup based off of redistricting right now. So
yeah, but here's the thing: what the United States Supreme Court said, they ruled on Louisiana. You cannot use race in any way, shape, or form to draw these maps. Race should have nothing to do with that representation.
Absolutely not, unless you're going to give the Irish their own district, Italian American descendants their own
Exactly.
district.
And it's all seems to hone in on the black community.
That's exactly what it is. Don't because once the race hustlers have nothing to complain about, they're out of a job.
Exactly.
So
Exactly. So
great job by the Virginia Supreme Court. But yeah, we're far from done on that. And that's been this week's Hot Shots.
So Josh and Mike joining us now is former Army Special Forces Green Beret veteran Nick Polce, who is running for U.S. Senate in Wisconsin. Sir, thank you for joining us.
Oh, I'm awesome. Happy to be here. And just one thing, it's state Senate. So I'm running for
State
Senate
Senate,
District 11.
excuse me.
State Senate, yes. State Senate.
Well, you were running for lieutenant governor,
I did, yes.
and
yes.
then you changed.
We did change.
So
We
what
did.
what brought on the change?
The bar change. I kept getting the question how. So in Wisconsin, lieutenant governor has two powers that are outlined in the Constitution. If the governor leaves the state, then he can appoint you delegate certain powers. If something happens to the governor, then will then move up to take over and run the state, and then you're in charge of the Senate. Short of that, there's no other powers outlined in the Constitution. So as I was traveling around, trying to earn votes, talking about my message, things that I wanted to do for the state, I kept getting the question of how. Nick, we like what you're saying. We like the items, your agenda, what you want to get done. How are you going to do that? And my response was consistently, I can be an advocate. I have a platform. I can speak. I have the power to convene. I can bring people together. But that limits it. And so in the Senate, I have the ability to craft legislation, block legislation. If for whatever reason we don't win, the Republicans don't win the governor's race in 26, we can be in a position to block and defend against a Democrat agenda in the Senate. And so that's ultimately to answer that how question. I thought about it for a while. I prayed about it. And that's why I decided to leave the lieutenant governor's race and focus on the race in my home district, which is District 11, and focus on August and then ultimately November.
Nick, what is the current makeup of the Wisconsin state legislature?
So we are in the assembly, it's 54 to 40. We got about an 8-vote majority in the assembly. It's 54-45, I think it is. And then in the Senate, it is, 1913. No, what is it? 19. I think it's 1914 right now in the Senate. So as Republicans, they hold both of the Senate and they hold the assembly. You got Democrat governor, Democrat attorney general, Democrat lieutenant governor. And so this year in 2026, there are going to be some competitive races, and it will be close in both the assembly and the Senate to be able to hold both. And then the governor's race also will be very close.
What has transpired over the course of the last 2 decades? I went to Ohio State University, the baby, and I got my political science. I went there for political science, and 25 years ago when I'm at Ohio State, the concept of Wisconsin having any Republicans, in charge in the legislature, governor. But it seems like there's been some sort of maybe cultural shift going on in Wisconsin. Can you explain the dynamics of what, turned basically a super solid, consistently blue, kind of that Reagan Democrat, blue collar Democrat working man state, to go from that to where they are now, where the Republicans are doing really well up in Wisconsin?
Sure. So the origins to that go back to the Tea Party, right? The 2000, where President Obama won, or at that point, Senator Obama won in 08, 2009, 2010, all the agenda that Democrats were trying to push through at the national level. And that sparked the Tea Party revolution. And so that era in 2010 is when in the Wisconsin, Republicans started winning back the assembly, were able to get in positions in the Senate. Governor Walker won in 2010. And then he started to take action on some of the things that were going to shrink the size of the government. Remember, his famous Act 10 was focused on some of the collective bargaining related to the unions and some of the other items Because that, if you remember that time, not just in Wisconsin, but across the country, there was this feeling like federal government had gotten too big. We were just coming off of the financial crisis, and there was a feeling like a lot of people were hurting and the government was taking too much money out of our pockets. So that was the pivot there in the early 2010s. And then Governor Walker had a fantastic run. He won his recall in 2011, did some great things in his first full term there, 2010, 2014, won again, 2014, 2018. And the Republicans continued to hold and then advance their majorities in the Assembly and the Senate up into 2018. And then 2018, Governor Walker went for his third election, his re-election. He ended up losing a very slim margin to current Governor Evers in 18. And so since 18, the Democrats have held the executive branch. There's been some redistricting fights. We had the redistricting in 2010, redistricting again in 2020. Then there was another redistricting fight. And so during the most recent redistricting fights, some of the maps got redrawn. And so then there was some seats that were up for play that were once solidly red that then started to get into purple/blue. And so then Democrats have been slowly starting to take back some seats and shrink that majority in both the Senate and the Assembly in the last four to 6 years.
So speaking of redistricting, that's the hot topic right now. Really, it has been for a couple of years now. Things have happened in Texas. Most recently, what Virginia has tried to do, which has been stalled by their Supreme Court. Is there really a fair way to draw the district maps without relying on race?
You mean like in Wisconsin? You mean, or
well,
related,
just in general? In general, I mean, I think every state now is going to be whoever's in charge, whether it's Republicans or Democrats, they're going to try and draw the maps to favor their party. But is there really a way, no matter which state, to draw the maps without looking at race?
I think we can, for sure. I think we definitely think we can. We're in one of those times in our history where we're very polarized. And much like you said, that whatever party seems to get in power, there's a fight to consolidate and expand power and use whatever tool is available to try and do that. And now we're in the redistricting fight, right, as it goes across the different states throughout the country here of trying to, how do we keep in power? How do we fight in the battle on each side? I think we definitely can draw maps if we return back to some of the basic principles about how many people should be in each district, how the districts are supposed to be drawn, right? There's some certain ways of drawing it that came out of some of the Supreme Court had a certain test cases and certain ways that you can draw those districts to make it so that the end state is the individual that lives in that district should represent the district that he or she lives in, and it's a relatively normal sized district, not like some of the, I don't know if you've seen some of the maps in Illinois, for example, where there are all kinds of ways that they're drawn districts across the state to try and minimize or carve people out. And that was not the intent at all.
Nick, I'm wondering, when you look at the political landscape, not just in Wisconsin, but just on a 30,000 foot view right now, the big thing is here in Columbus, Ohio, many of our gas stations now are hitting $4.99 a gallon. And, there's some impact, all this impact that's going on through what's going over, in the Strait of Hormuz and all this. But you look at everything that's just going on in the political landscape, and it feels like we're at a tipping point here where I think some of the things the left has done, the Democrats have done in terms of just full on embracing, communism, democratic socialism, that kind of stuff, has kind of backfired on them. But then you look economically right now, and there's not really a lot the GOP can hang their hat on. Just as you try to navigate this current political landscape, I mean, what are your observations, and where do you think we just kind of need to reset and refocus, and what should be our priorities moving forward?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the item one of the more important things to me, and the item that I consistently hear about as I've been traveling across the state and now the district is affordability. And you nailed it when you talk to the gas prices. I mean, I was just looking at the gas on the way to work today. It's almost double what it was in February, right before the war in Iran kicked off. And that's not a good thing when it comes to affordability, especially going into the summer. And so that's going to be a challenge. There's no way getting around it because we often vote with our wallets and our pocketbooks, and it's very difficult, even if the Iran war were to end tomorrow, to get gas to come down pretty significantly before the midterm elections. And so in Wisconsin in particular, we have the second highest prices for energy in the Midwest. And part of that had to do with poor planning going back a decade and a half. Part of it has to do with mandates trying to go down the route of green energy, meaning the solar and the wind, forcing the energy companies to use that instead of allowing it to happen organically in a free market, closing coal power plants, and then not increasing our natural gas supply when we had the ability to do it. And so now we're here sitting, even Illinois, as regulated as that is, has cheaper energy than we do, if you can believe that. So it's a problem right now for us. And to your point of focus on it, that we got definitely things that we can do with the state, and hopefully we can get this war in Iran wrapped up shortly and get trade going back and try to bring these gas prices down because it's hurting people.
Well, as I'm sure you've heard, Saudi Arabia has stated they are pulling out of OPEC. And what do you think that will have an effect? How will that affect us as Americans? Why should we even care about that?
So the good thing about President Trump's first term and then in his second term is that his team has been focused heavily on the United States, they'll drill, baby drill, on increasing access to oil, to natural gas, and some of the other resources here in the United States. And so we became for a long time, we were a net importer, and recently we've become a net exporter, which is fantastic. Helps us to be self-sustainable. With Saudi Arabia leaving OPEC, what I be interested to see is what their plan is for how they're going to handle their fuel, right? Because OPEC was designed to be able to control the price of oil, right? The oil petroleum exporting countries, so that there was cartel, which didn't have a free market in oil, and they could control the prices, and then all the power and all the focus became on those Middle Eastern countries because the whole Western economy and the whole world economy ran on oil. So them leaving now what is their reason and what's their play? Because they're, other than the United States, they're the largest producer of oil in the world. So I would be interested to see what their play is and how they're planning to move forward. Are they going to move more to a free market where they're going to allow their oil to be sold competitively and against the rest of OPEC countries? So to me, that's just it's a wait and see on what they're going to do and how they're going to use that newfound freedom going forward.
You know, you look around the political landscape, it's ugly. And it happens, media, you can turn on, pick your certain media, whoever, and it's just nasty. And people going back and forth at each other. And we've never been so polarized. And so I think about what kind of a, ugly world politics is right now. What motivated you to just to be committed to this, to want to serve the public, to want to get into this, to because I'm sure people, will smear your character given a chance to, gain a little bit here in the polls. And it just seems like such an ugly world. Where does this sense of self-sacrifice for public service come in? I assume that goes back to your days when you served our country.
Yeah. So my why for this race, my why is my little guy. He's a little over 9 now. And it's him, it's the next generation, and being in a position where I don't want him growing up in a state he can't afford, a country he can't afford, and then I want him to be in a position where he can chase his dreams the way that I was able to, and my father before me. And it feels like for that next generation, millennials, Gen Z, and then my son's generation, who's Alpha, I think that's pretty cool, Gen Alpha, that it's a little bit starting to be a little bit out of reach. Housing costs are skyrocketing. We talked about energy, leaving school saddled with a lot of debt. Job market, not the best. We're going through another disruption time with AI and how that's going to play out. And so he's my why, and I don't want to be in a position where I'm leaving the next generation off worse than we got it, because that's never happened in the United States. We're all that American dream of being able to achieve based off of merit, be able to provide for your family, and then allow your kids and your grandkids to stand on your shoulders and chase and improve. And that's been 250 years of greatness in this country. So that's why I decided to get in. And there's also a sense of duty. It's not aspirational. This is a sense of duty. Right now, we're in a unique time in our history. You mentioned the polarization. You mentioned the feeling of being farther apart than we are closer. And then, to me, the natural American greatness and natural American values is closeness. It's togetherness. It's feeling a part of something. And we're drifting apart. We're divisive right now, and it seems like it happens every couple of decades in our history, right? It seems like it's about every 4 generations we kind of go through this divisiveness. If we go back 80 years, we have Great Depression, right? We have World War II. Go back 80 years from that, you have the lead up to the Civil War. You have the Civil War, a very divisive time. And prior to that, 80 years approximately is American Revolution, when we broke free. And that was also a divisive time, because you had, what was it, roughly 30% of the people wanted to be free, 30% wanted to remain with the crown, and there was approximately 30% in the middle that didn't really fall one way or the other, right? So it seems like we got about every 4 decades or every 80 years, right? There's this kind of time we go through, and we're in another one of those times.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your military career, and thank you for your service. Sure. You served for 10 years, and compared to what you went through and what you see happening now, and I personally think Secretary Hegseth is doing a phenomenal job reinstating the qualities in the military that makes it strong. Now, I'm saying that as an outsider looking in. I never served. My daddy served. My romantic partner served, and I've heard all kinds of stories. And I would like to know your perspective, because the left is totally villainizing Pete Hegseth and what he's doing. What do you think?
Yeah, so the left, first of all, thank you for the kind words. It's an honor to be able to serve the country, work with some of the finest that we have to offer. The left will always tell you who they fear. In the amount of focus and attention and energy that they've directed at Pete Hegseth since he put his name forward, or since President Trump put his name forward for that nomination, tells you exactly who they fear, and tells you that he is somebody that is making progress and will continue to make progress as long as he's got the people in place to support him. And I agree with your assessment. Now, I'm not active duty anymore, but friends that are still working, friends that are in different positions in the administration or in the Department of War specifically, definitely a cultural shift. Because we had, not under President Trump, but under President Obama and then President Biden, you had a shift away from what the American military is supposed to do. And it turned into the social engineering. It turned into a lot of lack of focus on, Pete Hegseth calls it lethality. I call it the 2 things the military is supposed to do, which is break things and kill people. Like, that is the job of the military. And we don't want to use it until we have to use it. Then we commit. We give our men and women everything they need to be successful. We make sure their rules of engagement allow them to be safe and operate, and don't have real restrictive rules of engagement like we had under President Bush, like we had under President Obama. And he appears to be, Secretary Hegseth appears to be refocusing, changing the warfighter mentality back to the way it should be, which is fantastic to see, and it brings pride back to those of us that have put the uniform on previously.
Well, they have said since he took over, enlistment has gone up exponentially, which is good to hear.
Yeah, I believe it. I believe it.
I meant to look up the numbers and I completely forgot. So I want to pivot to one other topic before we have to let you go, and that's the topic of education, which is I'm very passionate about. Ohio, like many states right now, is fighting to keep our voucher program in place. Does Wisconsin have one? And if not, are you going to fight for one?
So I'm also passionate about education. Yes, Wisconsin does have voucher programs. One of the things that I'll focus on in my role as a state senator is we don't have a revenue problem in the state. We have a spending problem. And so what's happening right now is there's a lot of focus on schools, rightfully, and this feeling that we just have to keep throwing money at schools because that's going to solve our problem. So before we talk about throwing any more money at schools, I want to focus on auditing. I want to focus on where the money's going, because as we see what President Trump is doing at the national level, program after program related to government spending we are learning has a lot of waste in it, some cases fraud. And that is a direct result of government spending, incentivizing the spending rather than where's the money going, how's it best spent? Because that's the way, and that's at the federal level and that's at the state level, is the incentive is to spend the money and not worry about it. So I think there's going to be a lot of waste in education spending that we can recapture and reallocate towards students, towards teachers, towards a variety of programs, period, before we talk about any type of additional increases in revenue. Because that's the thing that's going on the most here in this state, is a constant focus on increasing revenue, increasing taxes to go for the schools without recognizing and figuring out where the money's going and how it's best being spent.
Yeah, agreed. I know here we had a huge problem in Ohio with schools taking all that COVID money and not thinking long term. They started hiring administrative positions with that money. Well, that COVID money was one lump sum. They knew it was going to run out. So what do? They go and ask the taxpayers for more levies so they can keep paying for that. And all the while, the kids' education, their test scores are going down rather than up. So yes. I hope in Wisconsin you win, and you can also help fix things there in Wisconsin for your students, as well as we're working here in Ohio, and hopefully that'll translate to other states. We can support each other. So
I agree 100%. That is, the parents should be deciding where to send their kids. Period. It's up to the parents, and so they should have the opportunity to be able to decide how and where, and to make those decisions.
Correct. I agree. So your primary is in August.
Yes.
If anybody wants to help your campaign or find out more about you, where can they go?
Sure. So they go to our website, which is nicholaspolce.com. Our X is Nick Polce, WI. And then we have our Facebook page is Nick Polce for State Senate.
Fabulous, sir. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, appreciate it. It's been good talking to you, and good luck. And hey, it takes a strong person right now in this world we're living in. But I'm with you, brother. I believe we can come together. I believe that what makes us Americans brings us together. I think we can overcome this, and but thanks for keep fighting the fight and having the courage to do this and serve, and for being and your motivation is well placed. I have an 11-year-old boy, a 7-year-old daughter, and a 3-year-old daughter, and those three little precious angels are my motivation to keep fighting for a better world. So God bless you, man, and good luck to you.
Yes.
Thank you. I'd love to hear that. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. This has been Straight Shot Politics.